this bill seeks to bring to improve the lives as these people pursue their livelihoods as public officers. And when we look at the appointed workers, Mr. President, these are persons who may have been appointed at one level, and then they were, for whatever reasons, promoted, or I shouldn't say promoted, they were allowed to act at a higher level, but they have remained appointed at the lower level, not at that higher level, even though they've been doing that work for more than 3 years as of October 1st, 2020. Now, there are many reasons why that can happen where they're not appointed to the higher posts. And of course, being appointed to the higher post has its own benefits as well. And some of those reasons, Mr. President, could be that the post that they're in is not vacant. And for a regular Barbadian who does not understand the public service, a person can be in a post that is acting in a post that is not permanent. That is not vacant. And that can happen for a number of reasons. It could be, sir, that the person who is the substantive holder of that post could have gone on secondment. So the post secondment, that post still belongs to them, but they have gone somewhere, perhaps the United Nations or somewhere, on secondment from the government of Barbados. But the work that they would have done still has to be done. So you have some person in that post. So they are acting in the post, but the post is not vacant. You can have where people might have gone on no pay leave, and they have gone off to pursue opportunities somewhere else, and the public sector have given them no pay leave. So that post is still their substantive post, but they're not physically there, and someone is acting in it. So there are a number of other scenarios whereby you can have people who are appointed at a lower post acting in a higher post, but they cannot be appointed because the particular post is not vacant for them to be appointed in it. This particular bill, sir, seeks to help to address that situation where, as long as they were acting in that higher post, for example, for a period of 3 years or more, as at October 1, they will be appointed to the higher post. And where it is that the public service needs to create an additional post so that they can be appointed to it immediately, that would be called a supernumerary post, it shall be done. And sir, I raise that because it is in contrast to some work that had been started by the Arthur administration on the Barbados Labour Party back in 2007 for public officers to be appointed in the public service. Now, from my information from within the Ministry of the Public Service, a significant challenge that they found at that time was that if you had a person who may have been eligible to be appointed in a post that was not vacant, they could not be appointed because the post was not vacant. They would have to wait until a vacant post became available to be appointed in it. And so you had a situation where you had a whole bunch of people who were eligible to be appointed, but you didn't have enough vacant posts in which to put them. And it is interesting that there are many different stories as to what has happened, that the implementation of what was intended to improve the appointments and promotion of public servants, there are many different stories as to what really happened, sir. What we know now, however, is that with this particular bill, we are seeking to say, look, we recognize that we have a culture within the public service. We have a problem within the public service where there are a large number of people who are not appointed or who are still in temporary posts to which they should have been appointed. And we now need to fix that. And I say we need to fix that, and that we want to fix is close to 20% of the public service. The public service has about 15,000 persons approximately. And this particular bill, if passed, can positively impact and benefit some 3,000. 1,900 of which would be about those temporary workers, and 1,200 based on the statistics given by the Ministry of the Public Service who would be affected. So we're talking about 3,000 around out of about 15,000. We're not talking about a small number of people who have been. So you see, it has been widespread, it has been lingering, it has been long-term, and this bill seeks to bring some type of order to what is happening at this time. And where it is somewhat different than the 2000 is that it says, even if a person is entitled to be appointed, but the post that they're in as of October 12th, in which they would have been there for 3 years or more, is not vacant, we will create posts immediately and not have people wait for vacant posts to be created later on. And so it fixes the problem of appointment and promotion and the availability of posts into which to promote and appoint people all in one. That is where we have learned from some of the mistakes of the past, and where we have been able to see how the strictures of bureaucracy can really stop a good thing from going forward. We have now learned from it and start to put some things in place to help ameliorate that. Mr. President, I want to make it clear that this bill is not expected to be the be-all and the end-all for the appointment or the promotion of officers in the public service. This is just one solution right now to help clean up some of the challenge that is there right now and that has not been attended to in as efficient a way as the people of Barbados would have liked. While this now cleans up part of it, it at least clears some of the way for the Ministry of the Public Service to be able to make greater progress with a cleaner slate at this time, as it were, in order to do better as we go forward. And sir, I would wish to remind this Honorable House that while this bill does not amend the Public Service Act, it is a stand-alone bill that will do what the provisions provide for it to do, separate from any amendments to the Public Service Act. So it's separate. But while this bill will not take care of all of those officers who aspire for promotion or appointment, the Ministry of the Public Service still has the Recruitment and Appointments Code, which is found in the first schedule of the Public Service Act. They can still use that to make progress in terms of addressing the aspirations of others who would seek to be promoted and appointed within the public service. Mr. President, the bottom line is this bill will not fix it all. It was never intended to fix it all. It is just one way, and we encourage the Ministry of the Public Service to use the other avenues it has available to it to address many of those other issues as it relates to appointment and promotion. It is at this point, Mr. President, that I'd like, and certainly will, open the floor after calling for the second reading of this bill for the robust discussion that I imagine should happen in this honorable House as we determine how best we will go forward with this particular bill. And it is with these few words, sir, that I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Thank you, Senator Honey. Senator Franklin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, first, I would like to join the others who spoke earlier today to welcome you to this chamber, and I'm happy to say that we've worked well in the past together and elsewhere, and I do not expect that will change. And I congratulate you before, privately, but I would like to do that so now on the record.
Appreciate it.
I know you will do a good job. Sir, I welcome the fact that long-suffering and hard-working public officers would finally be appointed, despite some spiteful public servants who were trying to keep them temporary for a long time. But my problem is, sir, this bill has done a bit of a short circuit to get it. And I'm not going to cry it down, because you know what the old people say, if the devil bring it, the Lord send it. Well, the Lord sent this for a lot of public servants who were long-suffering. I heard Senator McConnell make some references, and I'm sure that this is what they told her, and they have misled her. They have misled the Prime Minister and everybody else when it comes to these appointments. One of the first things I want to point out to Senator McConnell is that you can't trust those senior civil servants at what used to call PAD. They lie to everybody, and none of you would deal with them, because it's an offense under the Public Service Act to lie to a minister. You could be dismissed for it. And from what I've heard, they've lied to you. You know, you said just now that they didn't have enough posts to appoint people to. That is not true. The Public Service Act, at section 13.5, I think it is, I'll just refer. Section 13.5. It says, subject to subsection 6, all temporary offices in the public service that were created as temporary offices and have been in existence for 3 or more years at the 31st of December 2007 are hereby established as public offices in the service. So they established all. You can't get more than all. But what happened? People at PAD appointed their friends in the jobs that these people were occupying. One fellow even appointed his wife, who wasn't qualified. And as a result, you had over 200 people who should have been appointed under the Public Service Act as of the 31st of December 2007, that those people up there cooked the books, put in their friends, put in their families. And those people who didn't get the jobs, some of them are still waiting from December 31st, 2007. When I said that the government has only continued what the late Right Honorable Owen Arthur has started, because this was his baby. But the implementation went awry. And I can't blame him, and I cannot blame the Barbados Labour Party at this point. Because the act was passed on the 31st, came into force on the 31st of December 2007. And quickly thereafter, the Barbados Labour Party lost the government. So you had new ministers. I know what's happening to new ministers. The civil service is tricked the life out of the man. They tell you what they want you to believe, not necessarily what is true. And I am sure any one of you who is a minister in here, and whoever been a minister, will realize that that is true. You have some senior civil service man, but you're only too happy for a new minister. Man, they treat you real bad. When you find out the kind of nonsense, you'll be too ashamed to admit it. That they trick you with. Trust me on that. And as a result, people who should have been appointed were not appointed. And their friends and family got the job. There's one fella, even for his wife, she was not in the service for the 3 years, but that was my wife. So I stick she in the post for somebody else. I complained about it. But he was a blowy boy. And his other home was in George Street. So they didn't do nothing. And he continued to wreak havoc in the public service. People who, and there's one fellow that this act will not address, and it's going to hurt, it's hurting me. He was acting in a particular post for 3 years and 7 months. He discovered that his senior officer was committed perjury by swearing an affidavit to the court that a particular person cannot be found. The fellow cannot be found because a senior politician in the last administration didn't want him found. So he swore an affidavit, man can't be found. And when this marshal found out, he wrote to the registrar and said that this man telling lies that the man can be found. Furthermore, a marshal whose mother is in the other place, he saw the man in the courtyard because he came from another, but he can't be found, but a marshal went and find him for one instance. But the other fellow couldn't find him for another instance. 2 documents were served on him. A document to commit him to prison for not paying his maintenance, and one to come court for another maintenance order because he had a lot of children. But he came to court on one, and they said they couldn't find him for the next. And this senior marshal, a fellow called Wiseman, reported it. You know what the Dems did to him? They took him down from acting. As a matter of fact, he was the only person qualified to act. And you know what they did? They took him down because he dared to complain for a person who didn't put him in place. The man perjured himself. And according to this act, the Public Service Act, he was obliged by the Code of Conduct and Ethics to report criminal behavior or unethical behavior of his senior officers. And he did that, and he got punished for it. So he got taken down. Now he's back acting again, finally. But he has not been acting for 3 years prior to tomorrow. So he will not be appointed. They put him in that position, but you know the joke is? They took him out and put one of their people in to act. A fellow who had stolen the maintenance money that he'd collected from the delinquent fathers. And they put him to act. He stole the money, so they gave him the act so he could pay back the money that he had stolen. And poor Wiseman had to step down. I spoke to him last night. He told me, Frank, you can call my name. So that's why I call his name. It was massive corruption in the appointments that led to this. I personally spoke to the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister, about these. So on a couple of occasions when we met, either at meetings or casually. When she saw me the Tuesday when Parliament opened, she said, casually, I can't complain now. I get all the appointments that they're asking for. I said, but no, Prime Minister, you don't always find that to complain about. So I thank her for the appointments. I just wish that it hadn't been done this way. But if the devil bring it, the Lord send it. And these are public officers who know because the banks don't understand the public service. I'm going to hear temporary. A fellow been temporary for 20 years, and he can't get a loan, he can't get a mortgage because they hear temporary. Fellow work every day for 20 years, but you work in a Stonebridge town. You're temporary all the time because you can fire anytime you feel like, But public servant who got 20 years, and the fellow who got 20 years in the company downtown, he can get the loan, the fellow from the private company. But a fellow in public service for 20 years, I work in public service for 10 years, never been appointed. I get loans, though. So as I said, I'm happy that this bill is going to appoint these people. But at the same time, I'm saddened that the fact it is not going to be extended to police officers and prison officers. I saw in the newspaper today where the Attorney General said something about, I wrote it down, I hope I didn't lose it, where he made some mention of the fact that some of these people might have to take like detector tests and all kind of stuff. Every policeman that comes into the force is appointed as a level training school on probation. So it's just not a question now. So if he's acting in a position, he's already there. So why not promote him like how you're going to do for the other public servants? So I don't what he said to me doesn't make sense. That sounds like one of the things that the civil servants that he come up with, because that don't make sense. Prisons, on the other hand, Dodge prison. That's where you get appointed if you participate. Long-standing, deserving people, they always find ways not to appoint them. We even had a situation where people were to be appointed and they changed the qualifications that people will not be appointed and bring in something called penology. You have to have this course called some penology thing. A 3-month course, no exams. And people with degrees can't get appointed because this is what they trick the ministers into signing so that their friends could get jobs. Ministers got to be aware of what's going on, to get tricked. A fella ain't got an O level. A man with a degree can't get appointed, but you take the fellow without any O levels at all, any CXC. Take him down to the university and get a 3-month course in something called penology. Don't examine him on the work that he's done, but having gone to the course, eligible for appointment, and you step over the heads of people who were there and working hard. Why? Because you're somebody's friend or you take part in the business that they do extracurricular. That isn't fair. I don't know why they're not appointed. And the thing is, Dodge Prison, I almost said brothel again. Dodge Prison needs a commission of inquiry and jailing some people. I've seen the superintendent of prisons try to get a few of his people locked up. And the people that he wants locked up and the people that want locked up are the people at higher level. I'm not going to say him. You have people in Dodge Prison now working for former inmates at night at strip clubs. First of all, it's an offense to associate with a former prisoner. But yes, you want to work for him. You go to his strip club and you work for him at night. You're senior, and I'm not talking about no little junior fella. I'm talking about senior people, wear pips. And nothing happens. But the fellow, a young lady, bought some ink to go and do tattoos when she get home, and she bring the president to before the court for bringing ink. Court tried out the other day. No can't think at the prison, the fellow bring snacks, shirty biscuits, some other little sweet, because he want a little snack at night. He's not in the group of people that they love. So call the police, he charged, and a lot of nonsense going on there, and nobody is taking charge. I thank God when they moved the former minister, because he looked at me and tell me about one, but Caswell, you're the only body who want lock up with a car, not a Cormier man. You're the only Cormier man. I said, nothing, no Cormier. People have been doing all kind of nonsense. They bring their own private work, get cars repaired in the prisons. Cars put up in the prisons. import cars and get them assembled in the prison. Not a cent passes through the government coffers. They use the prison labor. They use the prison material. And when officers speak out, they can't get appointed. They get victimized. They get charged before the court. One fella on sick leave, the extended sick leave that you're talking about, he got injured in the prison because he tried to stop a fight with some inmates and the fellas beat him. And he's gone on sick leave for the extended period. You know what they did? They cut his pay. So he on sick leave too long. So he talked about it he was hurt. So he told Emmanuel Joseph from the Barbados today. Fella read the story, suspend him forthwith. Fella got suspended and referred him out to the Protective Service Commission. The Protective Service Commission said, look, this is nonsense, and tried to take boy out of work. But that was 47 days. Mind you, that is rare, because when some of these stupid heads of the departments suspend you, and they can, under the Public Service Act, sometimes it goes as much as 4 or 5 years. I remember one of my members was suspended for 4 years plus. And when the commission saw what they suspended him for, they didn't even bring it. They said, let's go back to work. Nonsense. And they called him and tell him to come to work. He's called me and said, Mr. Franklin, they called me and tell me can't work. What to do? I said, if the call that can't work, you know. He said, man, I had to home for 4 years, boy, and I don't feel like I don't know you. I didn't enjoy this. 4 years suspended, they had somebody act for him. I said, but no, you gotta go work. They tell I can't work, you gotta go work. He said, I know what we're gonna do, man. They give me the uniform for 4 years. That uniform can't fit me now. So they called him and said, I got a uniform. He's a nurse. And he said, they tell you, come here, you go. He come to work, dress up pretty, and can work the next day. You understand? 4 years suspended. And these people at PAD allowed 4 years. I got one who's 5 now, still on suspension, on full pay, because the head of the department cannot suspend you on anything but full pay. And you got people acting up. So the person that you're talking about in a vacant post, who's been acting for, he wasn't vacant, but he's acting for 4 years. He's going to be acting tomorrow. The fellow working for him going to be acting tomorrow now for 4 years. He ain't get appointed. Why? Because PAD ain't doing its job. These look, say what you may, we never knew what he was doing. He appointed the persons who were in the service 3 years prior to 31st of December 2007. So everybody who was supposed to be 3 years prior to that date, except the post for special projects, everybody was supposed to be appointed. And thereafter he said, at section 1311, no established post in the public service shall remain vacant unless the vacancy is approved by the Governor General acting on the advice of the Service Commission, or the Minister frees the post. That's what it says. Yeah, or the post has been frozen by the Minister. Same thing. So you have a situation where the law says that you cannot have people working in established posts and not filling them for more than a year. Now these civil servants check one again and got you telling people about 3 years. The Public Service Act says a year. That you cannot have a person acting for or in a vacant post for more than a year. It says here anything. If you drop me a line in the book and you can read it yourself. But no, these people who advise you at the Ministry's Public Service, they call it these days, lie to you every time. I get tired of it. And not got you here so telling people, oh, if you had 3 years, it should be a year. Because the act says so. And they should have filled them within a year, but some of them is 10 years, and they may do nothing about them yet. Why? In some cases, the body that they want fill them ain't got the qualifications yet. So rather than fill the post, they keep the post vacant, have somebody acting in it, and then when their friends come back from university or wherever they send them, then they have interviews and their friends miraculously get a job. It happened like the mental. The current director of the mental was not qualified to be director, he was a staff nurse. So they did not fill the post of director. For years, he's acting. Then he qualified. Mind you, there were other people who were working there and were qualified and senior to him. But they didn't want them, they wanted him. And the people in the Ministry of Health and at PAD, as they called it at the time, conspired to make sure that their man got the job. So they filled the vacancies. So that is why they're not filling vacancies. Because my son at university coming out soon, and I'm filling this post till he qualify. He fail, of course, he got to go back, so he got to go back another year before he fill it. All these things happen in the public service because you got to be somebody son, somebody daughter, in love with somebody is your what do you call it? It is. But they're trying to legalize these days. If you in those relationships too, you have that. So if you're not fitting those categories, if you're out there, so just a normal civil servant who trying to get through life normally and following the rules, you ain't making it. Somebody got your job, they mark your mark on it, and they conspire. What I don't like about this bill is that you tell people now that if you have a bad report. I had bad reports one time. I was one of the best civil servants I had. So imagine me getting a bad report. But never found guilty of anything. Never charged with anything. So if I were there now, all I had is a law moat. And I used to talk back with people when they tell me first I don't believe, because I remember one of my seniors told me, we've been doing this for 30 years, and you come and tell me first, you're doing it 30 years wrong. And me follow. Either doing it wrong, I was proven right in the end, They were doing it wrong for 30 years. But I stand up and say, well, look, I tell people, I went to school, I could read English, and would have you doing it, would it saying that? But that's another thing about the service. You come into the office, and you're doing the work. So when you're about to leave, they bring somebody for you to train. And you teach them your bad habits and your misinterpretations. So it go on and on and on and on and on. But I said, no, you can't teach me nothing. The brothers that tell me something, I said, you went to convent, I didn't learn to swim. You can't teach me nothing. So let me read this thing for myself. But I shouldn't have said that, but they got offended. And as a result, but it turned out that I was right in the end. But I made an enemy because I said, but you're doing it wrong for 30 years, and they were. Right? So I don't, as I said, I don't want to make too much noise about this act because it's doing something that I begged for. And they're going to say I'm grateful if I get too much noise, but I got to speak about the things peripheral to it. And I got a lot of things that happen. Right? And with public service taking a lot of or arrogating unto themselves things that are not theirs, powers that are not theirs. I'll give an example. Recently, I had reason to go and represent a deputy principal at a school, government secondary school. I sat before the chief education officer and I said to her, but the acting chief education officer said, look, you have no such power to transfer a principal or a deputy principal. I said, mind you, all your predecessors have done it. And I never complained because they were not my members. But no, this one is one of my members, you ain't touching them. And I picked up the Constitution, pointed out that under the Constitution, a principal who is the head of department according to the Public Service Act, the 8th Schedule of the Public Service Act, says, if you look down the list, secondary schools who is the head of the Department of Secondary School? Principal. For the purposes of the Public Service Act, public service, a principal is the head of department. And under the Constitution, only the Service Commission, after consulting with the Prime Minister, not the Minister of Education, not the Chief Education Officer, can transfer a principal. But principals have been transferred over the years, certainly after 2007, when this act came into force. And people telling me, but why did you transfer them? And principals didn't know. The Chief Education Officer has power to transfer certain people. Because, look, let me go back. Under this Constitution of Barbados, Section 94, the Governor General, acting on the advice of the Public Service Commission, or whatever it's called these days, was responsible for appointing people, and appointments mean appointment on transfer as well. Governor General. But you do not expect to see every little administrative thing in public service done by the Governor General. So Section 95 allows the Governor General, Section 95 of the same Constitution allows the Governor General to delegate some of her powers, or his powers, depending on who Governor was at the time. It was in 1974 that they did it, to members of the Commission or to certain senior public officers. It is called, the document is called the Delegations of Functions, Public and Police Services Miscellaneous Provisions Order 1974. It was published as essay number 174, number 122. I call it so many times, I don't got to look. And in that document, the Governor General has delegated to the Chief Education Officer the power to make acting appointments to the post of teacher, appointments to the post of supernumerary teacher, and display control and respect of the temporary teachers the supernumerary teachers. That is all the power that the Chief Education Officer has. If the Governor General, under an instrument by a law, delegate unto you certain powers, you can't take more unto yourself. You cannot arrogate unto yourself more power than you got. The Governor General give it, and that's it. But you can transfer and you can appoint temporary teachers, acting teachers they call it, acting appointment to the post of teacher, and supernumerary teachers. A principal is not an acting or temporary teacher. So she or whoever sits to the office of Chief Education Officer cannot transfer a principal. I hope the people in the back are listening, because they may know. And they take the transfers and grumble. But they don't have any such authority. If anybody doubts me, read the documents for yourself. Section 94 of the Constitution gives the power to the Governor General. The Governor General at Section 95 can delegate those functions to other people. She can delegate the functions except the power to dismiss. All the other powers she can delegate. And to the Chief Education Officer, she gives these two little powers, and the Chief Education Officer take more onto themselves. Stop it. Because what happens, and I'm hearing that you get a call from somebody, and the minister tells the chief, transfer X. Minister hasn't got power to do that either. When she denied that that was the case, I said, you want to see the text message? I made the WhatsApp message that where the person who made the thing said that they're doing it. She said, I don't want to see it. I said, well, look at here. But they had the WhatsApp message too. So they're not even acting on their own. They're taking instructions from people who don't have the authority to give them instructions. So you disrupt the school system because somebody get vexed if I don't like he, or he went to school at so-and-so, and he shouldn't be principal at this school because he ain't good enough. So you transfer it out. Chief Education Officer has no such power to transfer a single principal. As I said, the power resides with the Commission, and because it is the head of department, And that power is found in the Constitution, where it said the Prime Minister, consulting with the Commission, that is at Section 99(2) of the Constitution, which was one of the constitutional amendments made in 1974. The Act was 1974, number 34. All right? That we should go to rest right now. So I hope some of these people in the ministries are listening, because they're disrupting the system. They're getting and putting the political people in place, and all they're doing is destroying the public service. Senator McConney spoke about people who were sick. This is very far-reaching. When you refuse to appoint a person who is sick, that person still want mortgage too. The people still want Goggle loan. And I'll tell you something. They have now reduced it to 3 months, saying that, no, it is not 3 months. General Order 524.1 says, extensions of sick leave on full pay may be granted to an officer on reasons of ill health. Let me find it for you so I can read it. 524.1. Extensions of leave with full pay may be granted on the ground of ill health to any officer other than a casual employee for a period not exceeding 6 calendar months, and where there is reason to believe that the officer will ultimately be fit for further service for a further period not exceeding 6 calendar months. And there's reason for that. Remember, you talk about people paying less national insurance? Because the people in this category here, the civil servants, appointed civil servants, cannot claim national insurance, sickness benefit, or unemployment benefits because they don't pay for them. Reason being that their conditions of service when the National Insurance Act came into place was more generous than the National Insurance Scheme. So they excluded them from those services because you were entitled to your salary for up to 1 year. And then if you're not better within a year, then you go before the medical board and that kind of stuff. Over the years, people acting in defiance of what is stated in this general order have cut off people and say, you are not giving them, you're giving them sick leave, extension sick leave without pay. There is no such thing in the law as an extension of sick leave without pay. The only thing it speaks to is an extension of sick leave on full pay. So that's again somebody saying, well, look, I give you power to do X, and you're going to take on to do Y. You cannot give them anything else. Now, if you don't give them extension of sick leave, you have just dismissed them from the public service. So you got to get them in. But I'm the chief personal officer, now Director General, some years ago, has given to the heads of the department the power to decide if the people will get extension of sick leave. Again, in this document, General Orders has delegated that function to the chief personal officer, now Director General, and the chief personal officer, being a delegate, can't sub-delegate. Minister here will tell you he's a lawyer. There's a maxim, they call it, delegatus non potest delegare. All it means is that a delegate can't delegate. So if you have been delegated a function, you can't pass on to somebody else unless the instrument that they tell you, that give you the delegation, says you can do it. And the general order does not give her that power. But what has happened, since she don't want to do the work and is passing on the work to everybody else, different heads of departments have different standards. I remember some years ago, they say you're going to have to bring a certificate after 2 years. After 2 days. And one head of the department determined, oh, you have to write and say what was wrong with you. not required. But you see, officers take liberties. And the particular officer said, well, he went to a certain place downtown close to the market, and he went with a young lady, and he got crab legs. So he didn't want to work and spread them. And they said, you can't write that. He said, but that's what happened to me. They stop it. My friend Ashby, he's dead now. But different people, different standards. No, the standards should come from the chief personnel officer who has the power. And the power is given to her. Till she start doing her job instead of trying to farm it out to other people, because they're causing a lot of havoc. And then when they do it, they tell people, oh, we have, you're giving them extension of sick leave without pay. You can't do that. I'm going to give them without pay because when I'm not working for you, you give me extension of sick leave without pay. I'm not at work. I'm not working for you. So I've had no paid leave, or I've been dismissed and rehired when you take me back. That's what the case is. And the chief personnel officer got dismissed the body. So, what happens though is that the person is inspired to money getting paid. So when this note comes that you're on sick leave with extended sick leave without pay, they say, oops, you've been paid, you should have been paid, so you got overdrawn salary and we want it back. And they dip your hand in the people's money and take it out. People say, but I ain't owe you nothing. And they say, yes, you owe me. And some tyrants go in there and take out all one time, or some decide, but look, I take out $700 out of it, or I take out $500 out of it at a time. And left me with nothing sometimes, you know. Now, first of all, if I have a dispute with you, Mr. President, and we wouldn't have one, but just for the sake of having an argument, and you have some sort of judicial office, or you have the power to think, and you decide, well, you're going to settle the dispute because you have the power, and you say, no, you can't be at the judge, and you're on. I say, I don't have nothing for you, and you say, yes, you have, let it take it out. If there's a dispute, carry me to court. You can't give people money, but they do it in every department in public service. I have a dispute with you. I'm saying I don't owe you anything. You're saying, yes, you owe me. Now, there's a dispute. Now, if there was a situation where you say, yes, I owe you, I'll give you back, and let me take, and you take out $6 a week or whatever it is, so be it. But I'm saying, no, I don't owe you. And you say, yes, you owe me, because you're the paymaster, you take it out. That means that you've been accuser and judge in the same case. You complain and then you the judge. And it's happening throughout the public service. And the Auditor General say not to understand that. So he agrees with it. No, you can't take out people's money. You can't be, and the thing is, this government, when I say this government, I mean the government of Barbados, the 8th of May 1967, signed a convention with the International Labour Organization to say that you can't take out more than a third of your money. That's one of the provisions of the Protection of Wages Convention, and some people put the Protection of Wages Act. Some people argue that the Act does not bind the Crown, but we have international obligations that have to bind us. So one way or the whole. And the reason for that is that a man should be able, or a person should be able, to feed a family. So if you take out all the value money we can do, I know an empty W now. There's one man who they take out all his salary, don't give none whatsoever. You know, and then you're going to bus where they can work, and they say they're going to send you before the commission for not coming to work because the man is going to bus. He's got to beg somebody to get work. This is what is happening in the public service of Barbados today, with some unscrupulous people who have no heart, treat people like animals. You imagine taking away a man full salary. You say you got overdrawn salary or whatever it is, and you have to pay it back. So they take out all the man's salary. All. The only thing he's getting is contribution to national insurance. He take away all the rest. And they give him nothing. We have international obligations. We got the law that said you can't take out more than a third. Even if you had the power to go and take it out, you are restricted because the man still got to eat. You got to get the bus that can work. I mean, you can't get the bus that can work. Decide, oh, well, we can send before the commission because he ain't coming to work. You can't get work. Because some days you can buy start and beg a fellow for a bus fare, but no says bus fare going to $3.50. Compliments to you people. Everybody can give $3.50 so often. So you see, what is happening? I hope some people eyes get opened. I hope that I am not in here just barking and keeping noise for the sake of barking and keeping noise. I want to go back to the prisons and to the police and the fire service and all kind of stuff. Mind you, the fire service is one of the, if I listen to the Attorney General, the fire service is one of those people at the discipline services, but they're going to be appointed under this act. And the police and the prisons aren't being appointed. Come clean with me. Tell me the truth. Right? But, let me get another thing about it. The government has something called estimates. People read those. So they allocate money to people, and some money goes to what they call flexi. In the police force, they call it flexi. It's actually overtime. In prisons. You know, at the prison, they take the flexible and do other things with it. And you don't have that authority, but they do it. And don't pay the prison officer, tell them, well, look, you work overtime, so take a day off. No. Law is, the convention is, you got to pay a fellow with legal tender for work actually done. And you know, we reported that the former minister and the permanent secretary. When the permanent secretary heard the permanent secretary, he said, what's going on here? No, that is illegal. The permanent secretary started a quarrel. She got transferred. So somebody had more power than the permanent secretary. Because she had 6 months to go before she retired. And the transfer of permanent secretary was 6 months to go. You don't transfer a priest to a new ministry to go and learn a new ministry and then go home 4 weeks later because you have retirement leave. But they did it because the permanent secretary came on the side of the prison officers. When she did find out the truth. Mr. President, I am hopeful that these amendments, not amendments rather, this act, the people get the appointments, but they've got to fix the problem. And the problem starts with the Code of Conduct and Ethics, where people lied, paragraph 5C, where ministers are constantly being lied to by senior civil servants, permanent secretaries. It is against the rules in the public service to lie even to a member of the public. If you get caught in a lie telling a member of the public, they can report you and you can lose your job. It's as serious as that. But nobody will enforce those rules. Because you know who can enforce them? The same liars. That's the problem. And they like to train ministers. So they like to you. Open your eyes. When you find them lying, report them to the commission, let the commission deal with them. The service will be better for it. Paragraph 5C of the Code of Conduct and Ethics, Public Service Act. It's against the law. 5C, Code of Conduct and Ethics, second schedule. I know this act really well, so that's why I quote it and then go look for it. It says officers shall, A, B, C, not deceive or knowingly mislead ministers, Parliament, Permanent Secretary, or the public. And when you go over to the punishment section, it says if you breach this 5C, it is determined to be misconduct of a serious nature. And misconduct of a serious nature is conduct for which you can be dismissed. You see, the rot in the civil service isn't at the bottom. The problem is at the top. When the juniors see the nonsense that's going on, then they say, well, them going to pull the way either because boss ain't pulling the way and all kind of stuff. So, like Napoleon said, you got to shoot a general. Probably a director general. I don't know. No, Napoleon, not me. But you have to do something about it. I'm highlighting these things too often, and people just sit down for whatever reason. A former chairman of the commission, just recently passed, told me once he had a complaint to the Prime Minister, the last Prime Minister, about this person misleading the commission. And the Prime Minister said to him, he said, I can't work with her. He said, Prime Minister, no, I can go and pull her mother's door and go in. I used to do in St. Philip. So he appointed a new chairman. And that solved the problem for him. But this person continues in the public service, wreaking havoc, and seems to be immune. Lying to ministers, giving ministers misinformation, and then they come in the Senate and support. I don't blame Senator McConnell for some things that she said, because she ain't on about public service. I wrote down a few of them. And I addressed a couple of them here. But she said, the way to clean up this mess, the way to clean up the mess into establish new posts, the way to clean up this mess, but they got to establish a new post, no. But clean up the mess by getting rid of the messers, the people who are making the mess. Because let me tell you something. The Public Service Act, Recruitment and Employment Code, if you look at the notes, Note 7, let me find it. I'm speaking about the code, the Recruitment and Employment Code, which sets out the procedures for appointing people. In this code, there's exceptions. The section says, in order to give managers flexibility to meet short-term needs sensibly and economically, recruitment to appointments up to 12 months, it used to be 3 months. But these same people prevailed on the last administration change to 12 because they don't want to do the work. May be carried out without open competition if personnel from within the organization are filling such vacancies. If there is any possibility that staff may be needed for more than 12 months, or if the vacancy is being filled by external recruitment, then the procedure for full, fair, and open competition should be used at the outset. Meaning that if you have a vacancy and you know that is a permanent post, you got to fill it right now. But what they do, they keep people temporary, giving you 3 months or 6 months all the time. When the law says you can't do that. So when you, and then tell the minister, oh, you have to send up these things every 6 months. That's not what the law requires. The law says fill it from the outset if it is vacant. If it is a temporary thing, yeah, so be it. You put in these temporary people. But they keep people temporary. Give them 6 months, and then one of them and their friends finish school or whatever. Next thing you know, the body will get a new authority, and somebody will get any job. That person haven't worked for years, though. The public service is rotten to the core because of the abuse. Let me give an example of one abuse that I will speak to. This happened over 10 years ago because I was working at the NUPW at the time. And I took the case to court. That was the last case I took to court when I was there. We had a case where some young ladies' name went up to the commission for appointment. 2 people, one in the Ministry of Health and one in the Ministry of the Public Service now, but it was PAD at the time, conspired to deceive the commission. So the names that went up for appointment, they scratched out 2 and put in their children's names. Their children were being taught by these same people who have not been appointed. The people didn't train yet. They put their children's name in and scratch off the people who were eligible for appointment. When the matter went to court, and the process, the court's called discovery, where you have to disclose the documents. Cappy, you know about that better than me. They were ordered to disclose the letter that went to the commission to appoint these people. And the Ministry of Health said, the personal administration said, they can't find the file. They can't find the file. But the judge is smarter than them because the judge knows about public service. The judge said, well, if you have a letter coming from the Ministry of Health and coming to you, the Ministry of Health will bring the letter so they keep a copy on their file. So the order the Ministry of Health to disclose their file. You know what happened? They can't find it either. And those girls are still not appointed. And they can't get appointed on their post. Oops, call his name, sorry. Akani. And that case is ongoing for over 10 years. And the same person that I was speaking about earlier is presiding over that nastiness, and nobody is doing anything about it. I hope, and I think the Prime Minister meant well when she said that this post should be appointed, and when she gave me the promise, I took her to her word. I believe she means well. But they have misled her again. They certainly misled Senator McConnell because some things that she said here ain't really true. But you don't know it ain't true because you don't know nothing about these things. And I tell the people, I ain't looking for extra money. Let me look at them. Man, you got these little things coming up. Because I'll give an example, another example again. I like this. Capital like anecdotes, but I like some. I went to a meeting one there to address the fire service, some officers. And while I was there, a person from the Ministry of Public Service, because there was a training session. So they were giving their thing first, and I got there a bit early. And they were sitting down in the back. And she was spouting all kind of foolishness, nonsense. And I couldn't take it no more. My stomach was hurting. I said, excuse me, with all due respect, you know what you're saying is not true. You are misleading these people. There's nowhere in the act, there's nowhere in the law that you say these things. You see, fire officers have their appointments, have their qualifications in the Fire Service Act. So hence, there is no qualification in the Public Service Qualifications Order. So because they didn't see any qualifications in the qualification order for firemen, they decided they're going to put in some. Without reading the Fire Service Act, and you see, a fireman, one of the qualifications is you got a certain chest measurement. You know why? You can't go let purely fellow go in there and go and smoke dead. So you got to have a certain chest measurement. The people up there with these little want qualifications with all levels and shit, but you got common sense too. And they're going and try to change people qualifications. I say you cannot do that. You don't have the power. You can't. Only Parliament can do that. But they don't know their craft because these people come in green. They put them in a job. They don't know what they're doing, so they make the job what they think it should be. Not what it is, but what they think it should be. Let me talk about qualifications. I can sit down soon because I think my half hour is gone. The hour. In the public service, the minister must make orders. When the minister makes orders under Section 13, they must be published. They must be published and brought here and the other place because they are subject to affirmative resolution. The only order that the minister can make that doesn't come here is an order for the qualifications. So as a result, people trick the minister and get them all kind of fancy the minister sign off because some ministers like signing things. And they change the qualifications. And next thing you know, the fellow who was there qualified for the post and when they're getting it, all of a sudden the qualification change. You only find out the qualification change when the ad come out. And you scrambling out because you knew what the qualifications were. But nobody ever told you that they were changed. So I feel that this change, this power that the minister has, must be used sparingly. I remember some years ago there was a vacancy for chief marshal, and the person there, for every person who wanted for the job, did not have the qualifications. You had to have some sort of qualification in management and the paralegal certificate. Thompson was prime minister at the time, and they prevailed upon him to make a technical change here, the change and to or. So now you have to have management or the paralegal. It should be both. And he got appointed because now the qualifications have been changed. That's what I'm talking about. So these little slight things, they don't look big, but have far-reaching consequences. Mr. President, public service needs fixing. But the people who are supposed to fix it are the people who are mashing it up. Government needs to take the public service in its hands. I don't advocate firing people for the sake of firing people. I like people in work. But when you have people continually deceiving administration to administration to administration, and the only constant is them, and the trick, you know, when nothing happens, when they find out, when they trick somebody, they can find a way to get rid of them. You need to sit down. And look, I'm not begging for work, but this bill should have passed by me. And I would have made some comments, because the comments that I would have made this bill a lot better. Look, in the other place last night, they made some amendments. One of them don't make no sense at all. They got the wrong document here. It says, where an officer to whom Section 4 of Section 5 refers is prejudiced by the operation of either section in respect of the appointment to an office by virtue of the provisions of either section, the Governor General may appoint the officer to an office. You know, that came from the Public Service Act. What they did now, they take out things in the Public Service Act, put in here, that didn't make sense in the Public Service Act, and it didn't make, because they have never been able to implement this, or they didn't implement it. They put it back here again. You know, we need people who are honest and who do not set out to deceive. And we are not getting that at the level of the Ministry of Public Service. Something has to give, sir. I am sorry that I had to say these things over and over and again, but I will continue saying them until something happens. Now, let me check my notes and make sure I didn't miss anything. I spoke to some of them. I spoke the negative report, time off, and yes, and finally, sir, when a post in the public service is abolished, people in the private sector know it as being made redundant. In the public service, you call it abolishing posts. You know, we call things funny in the public service. When the post is abolished, under the old provisions, the government was supposed to find another job for you elsewhere or pay you your pension until such time as they find another job for you. And if you refuse that job, then your pension will cease. That is what the law says. But the CCJ went in and misinterpreted the law and said that if your post is abolished, you got to wait till 60. So imagine a fellow at age 35 or 40 gets his post abolished. And because you don't get no severance payments in the public, as a public officer, or no unemployment benefits, the only thing you're going to get is your pension when you reach age 60. You know you're going to work from 40 to 60 to get up in 20 years. That can never be what was intended by Parliament, and it wasn't. It is a misinterpretation that Parliament needs to fix. Because this year alone, the Public Service General Order 2018 was repealed and replaced by 2020. And you know how easy it is to abolish a post? Just left out a post that was in the old order and don't put it in the new. And one guy that I spoke with from the Ministry of Health, he went to the ATM and position he carried. It didn't spit out anything. I mean, check with the ministry. They haven't got the money in anything for him because his post has been abolished. He didn't know. That is what they do to people in the public service. They look at me after, mind you, the post would have been redundant anyhow. And they could have found something else for him. But because they didn't have to know, because they wouldn't go pay him any money, they just left you out there in the wind. So, ATM said, sorry, buddy, we ain't got nothing today. So that is how easy it is. In the public service now, in the private sector, sorry, if you're going to make jobs redundant, you have to do consultations with the unions or with the officers involved, and depending if you can send home 10% or some significant number, you got to go through 6 weeks consultation, all kind of thing. In public service, you don't tell a fella nothing. He's found out when he go to the ATM. These things are wrong. Government needs to fix them. Fix the Pensions Act to protect public officers who, because, Senator McConnell said, that when you have in a temporary position, you get appointed, you got security, then you don't have it now. Not since the Caribbean Court of Justice ruled in the Benton Campbell case, because the security of tenure that you had because if you were the post was abolished, you still get your pension. No, you don't get it. So all it needs to do with you is to get rid of your is to stop your pension. Then you are poor from the next day because you ain't getting unemployment benefits, you ain't getting severance pay, you ain't getting nothing. No government who cares about the people should allow that situation to continue. You can't do that to people. Mr. President, I think I went over my time, and I'm 5 minutes to go?
Yeah.
Well,
you had an hour to reply.
Oh, I thought I saw you signaling, and I thought. Well, thank you, sir. But all I'm doing is asking the government to review the legislation that deals with public service, pensions, public service rules, and all kinds of things. Get some sort of body. I am volunteering to work free on it because I can't trust the people who are paid to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. I might try to get you out of Parliament, but I'm not going to lie to you. All right? I don't see the need. But we need to fix these problems because they're doing more harm to public servants. And when you look at it, there's one core of people with these problems. You only need to tackle one or two people, and the whole public service will start to change. I am obliged to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Franklin. Senator Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the onset, let me congratulate you, this being our second sit-in, but my first opportunity to put that on record. I think that today is significant, not only because it is the first sit-in that you should have the opportunity for us to discuss such an important matter of public business, but because for me, this one has been a long time in coming. I do recall for the past almost 13 years since the public service legislation was passed in December 2007, that the subject of appointments has been one that has occupied our attention, perhaps sometimes preoccupying our attention because of the significance of it and the meaning that it holds for so many public servants. A number of those who were disadvantaged, and a number two who, since the passage in 2007, saw themselves in positions where they were significantly compromised. Certain commitments expressed when the Public Service Act was passed and seeing those commitments not honored and then finding themselves in a position, public servants generally and their representatives, finding a situation where some of the same things that that legislation sought to address were happening repeatedly. And a number of them calling and making appeals in so many different spheres to have the issues addressed in their interests. And whatever else I'm going to say this evening, I think that what we have before us must not be seen as a one-size-fits-all solution, but must be seen certainly in terms of what it is going to do in the immediate short term for the over 3,000 public servants that will stand to benefit. I don't need to rehash, but because a lot has said, and a lot of important things have been said that I would not wish us to forget, because so much else has been said. I think it is important for us to recognize that for the thousands that this bill would impact, once it is passed, that it is about providing security. And I don't want us to see security in terms of job security, because certainly recent history has shown that appointment does not mean that one will have a job for life or a job until retirement in the public service. Once upon a time, that was the feeling. Once you get a public service job, once you get a job in government, as people would say, that's a job for life, or a job for as long as you want it. So I'm not suggesting security in those terms. Certainly we saw in 2013 a number of public servants who were appointed finding themselves out of work, while public servants who were not appointed remained at work. I think easily of workers at the NCC and so on, MTW. Then we saw it in the BERT program. The BERT program the BERT restructuring that started back in 2018, where appointment on its own did not secure for the person who was appointed a place necessarily, as efficiency and other considerations, cost considerations and so on, became the order of the day. But security for many still, because what it represents is an access to social improvements for oneself and one's family, the ability to prove your income, as we heard from Senator McConney, to prove your income when seeking to access loans and seeking to access other means of enfranchisement and assistance for your family. It brings access to benefits because they're benefits that permanent officers have that temporary officers do not have, including sick leave benefits, if you can call that so, or protection, and paid time off, and also opportunities at times for career development. But one of the things that I have recognized over the near 13 years is that this, for many public servants, means peace of mind, generally. Because while there, as I mentioned, the whole idea of job security is not there in the same way that it was years ago, it's a peace of mind. Every week almost, there are public servants that have been complaining. If you see them 5 times, they'll be complaining, I just want my appointment. I just want my appointment. And that is something, therefore, that I recognize, Mr. President, for many is an answer to their prayers. However, there are a number of things that have been touched on peripherally, and I think that will need to be paid attention to, because why is it that a piece of legislation introduced in 2007 with a number of objectives that were set for it see us in a situation where we still have over 3,000 people today that still need this issue being fixed for them? It means that for the past 12 plus years, we've not been doing everything that we ought to have been doing. And it's not about apportioning blame, although it's easy to see where blame might reside. But it is more at this point about having us recognize that there is a lot in the system, in the public sector, that needs to be fixed, so that we can avoid some of the same pitfalls that have brought us to a point where in one fell swoop we have to be appointing large numbers and perhaps have to be overlooking a number of things, and in the process still maybe underlooking a number of things as we seek to answer the demands of many to settle the issue of appointments. I first want to touch on the issue of medical leave. And in the act before us, one of the grounds of ineligibility is where a person, where an employee in the public sector is on medical leave for a period of at least 3 months accumulatively in any one calendar year. And I want to stress something important here. And so it's not only that the person has been on medical leave for 3 months accumulatively on its own in a calendar year, but in addition, that person has been processed by the Director General for referral. So being on medical leave on its own, based on my understanding, Mr. President, is not a ground to make a person ineligible. But if they have been on 3 months leave and the process of referring them to a medical officer has been triggered by the Director General. And why is that important to note? It's important because in far too many areas of the public sector, we don't do things in a day if we can take a year to do them. We don't do them in a year if we can take a decade to get to a point. And one of the fears that many who hear this exemption may have, they may recall, cast their minds back to 2007, where a number of if-then scenarios were presented that we saw ourselves in a position having to fight for years and years to have them addressed. So when we see the grounds for ineligibility and we take note of criminal matters, disciplinary matters, medical cases, the caution that should be coming from this Senate as we pass this bill, and I'm sure that we will pass this bill, the caution that should be coming from this chamber is that these exemptions must not be treated to in a very loose manner. If a person has a disciplinary matter that is on their file for years, the question still has to be, should that person be exempted in circumstances where there is no movement on that matter and where it has nothing to do with the individual involved? Where a person has a disciplinary matter on their file and the person has no knowledge that there's a disciplinary matter on their file, should you still treat to that individual under Section 6 of the bill before us? And where a person has a conviction which may not have been expunged, that one may be okay. But there are cases too where in the public service an individual has a matter before the court. And we know how our court system is. Yes, there's been a lot of talk about the fixes that you're going to make to it. But while we are recognizing that we'll carry it back to the 1st of October, if it takes another year, if it takes another 2 years for a number of these things to be regularized, it still means that the benefit of appointment to bring security, to bring peace of mind, to bring access to benefits is denied for that further period, and that is something that must not be ignored. And it's something that must be underscored for attention as we do this with the intention that we hope not to find ourselves in this position in another few years. So yes, the point has been made that the public sector has to be fixed. I think that point has been made in this chamber on several occasions before. I therefore want to, as I note that, signal that the Public Service Act, for all the benefits it has brought, has also brought its fair amount of chaos to administration. And I do recall a previous submission of mine in this honorable chamber, especially when we were speaking on the position, the introduction of a position of Director General, that if we change titles, but we still have the systems as loose as they are, we're not going to be fixing anything. What we will be doing is shifting the problem down the road. And my submission is one, to applaud the fact that we have gotten to this point, but to have us recognize that we need to move beyond this to address the kinks in the system or the blockades in the system that are not allowing our public sector to be as efficient as it should be. The other thing that will concern many, and it's not that people are ungrateful, because we have this tendency that when we do things that should have been done ever since, and people complain about any aspect or challenge any aspect, there's a tendency by some to behave as if they're being ungrateful. But the other challenge that we should be preparing ourselves for in the coming months will be the issue of seniority. Because where appointments should have been done for some time before, and I think my mind goes automatically to the area of customs, for instance, and court martials, where there were a number of anomalies. We've heard about situations where people were put in positions and people who ought to have been put in positions were not, and so on. Although the appointment comes now, the date of the appointment also raises the challenge of seniority. So although a person may get an appointment, a grievance might not go away in full, because that person may feel that they ought to have been still senior over another person, because appointment dates do have a role when one is considering seniority. I'm sensing the room, and I know that a number of my colleague senators who are very supportive of this bill, they may be anxious for us to get to a vote. But I just felt it was important not for me to only cite those what I've mentioned as any regrets, because I don't think that they're regrets, they're points of caution. But I just wanted to take the opportunity in this honorable chamber to make sure that I was present here to see this one through, having agitated for it for almost 13 years for a number of these positions. I felt that it was necessary for me to see this one through to the point where we come to a vote. But as we, hopefully, it is the intention of the government to chart a course in a very careful way to avoid a number of the obstacles and pitfalls that were identified. And I do believe that a number of public servants have found themselves receiving so many promises, and of course they would hear a date of the 1st of October. But I think what will be more meaningful for many of them will be when they can receive in their hands the letter of confirmation. So many promises have been made over the years. In 2015, another similar promise was made. I know we've come a step closer. We are enacting it. We have a date. But I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And the eating would be in seeing public servants soon receive their letters of confirmation in their positions. And while we do that, while we work on that, I think that no time should be wasted in moving swiftly and assiduously to address the other outstanding matters. I am fully supportive of the bill. Comes at a very significant time in our lives as Barbadians and public servants when so many workers are challenged, where the issue of jobs and job security is paramount, is foremost in people's attention because of the economic security or insecurity all around. And I do commend this bill to each and every one of the honorable senators in this chamber for their full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Moore. Any other speakers before we invite Senator Jakes?
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would just like to quickly make an intervention on the Public Sector Appointment Bill 2020. And I just want to start off by saying that I do support the bill. But I just wanted to make some interventions. Sir, in a post-COVID world, I am of the view that it will be survival of the fittest. I believe it will be survival of the fittest. The way in which technology is being used in everyday life, in economic activity, we will come into a situation where there's a greater level of efficiency across the board. There will be data capturing and analysis to improve systems. And sir, although the bill provides the much-needed job security, as Senator Moore and Franklin would have mentioned, I couldn't help but read the bill, and I had a few questions, 3 in particular. Sir, I'll walk you through those 3 questions. As I read the bill and I understood its intention, I still felt as though there was some information that was missing. The first question I had was, what is the current level of productivity in the public sector? Sir, any estimates for the financial year 2019-2020, personal emoluments were just around $750 million. And we have about 15,000 public servants. Sir, despite having some kind of understanding of the number of persons in the service and the aggregate wage bill, I, along with most Barbadians, I'm not sure if the government has some kind of indication, but we are, for the most part, blind to what is the level of productivity across various departments in the government service. And so I think that type of information is really now needed to manage the economy that we find ourselves with. For in the near and the medium term, we will have to juggle extremely scarce resources and hopefully, without borrowing, any further debt or incurring any further debt. So, sir, what am I saying? I'm saying that we have to get to a point where we improve the type of information that we have coming from the operations of the civil service or the public sector. And, sir, knowing how many people are employed and what is that cost, and knowing those trends are just a starting point. There needs to be greater amount of monitoring and evaluation in place so that we get a richer set of information coming out so that we make better decisions going forward in order to transform the service. So, sir, even if we knew what that current level of productivity is in the service, the other question, given the many complaints that we hear across Barbados about when persons go into various government departments and how long things take, is how do we increase that productivity? And given that government has now extended an olive branch in the way of this bill to over 3,000 public officers, how do we get an increase in the level of productivity from those public officers? And sir, I am of the view, and I may be coming from a background that is non-traditional, where I've never been a staff member of an organization per se. I've always been a contract worker. I think that the type of job security that's being offered to public officers has to also come with some level of responsibility on their part. And, sir, if we continue to reward persons who are ineffective in their occupation on the job, or who blatantly disregard their responsibilities, some action should be taken swiftly. Sir, if we are to move forward, I believe some type of performance monitoring and assessment needs to be done. And even if we have to institute even self-reporting, those things will also act not just as a way to measure the productivity of the public officers, but for them, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, he or she will have some type of record of their service if it ever comes into question. So the third question is, how do we increase the level of satisfaction and incentivize public officers in order to increase their morale to provide better service? And so I ask that question because a lot of the times we look to technological interventions to increase the level of service, when sometimes there's a human element that needs to be improved in order for a better service to be provided to the people of Barbados in the public sector and in private business as well. So, and when I thought about that question, it took me back to an interview that Sir Richard Branson had some years back when he was asked about how was he able to have his companies and the staff of his companies provide such a high quality and level of service to the customers. And he simply said, I take care of my staff. Once I take care of my staff, they in turn will take care of my customers. So, sir, I think what the government now has to do, and as Senator McConney noted, this is just a first step, is start to think about the ways in which we can incentivize and increase the morale of those in the public sector. Because money is not all. In this environment, it may be. But how we interact and how we relate to our public officers goes well beyond just making sure they are appointed. So things like environmental conditions matter to morale. We know a lot of persons in the sector work in sick buildings. We are here in this building temporary because of that very reason. So the ability to express your opinion freely within your work environment also could have an effect on your morale. Sir, your ability to contribute to decision making, the presence of childcare facilities. Sir, the management and employee relations, all of these things, these softer aspects have some bearing on how people feel at work, and that in turn reflects on how they go about doing their job. In preparing for this debate, I desperately tried to find at least one assessment or report on the level of productivity in the public service in Barbados. And I found one assessment, Mr. President, and that was done by the IDB in 2017. And the name of that report is Building State Capacity in the Caribbean, the State of the Civil Service in Barbados. And in that assessment, Barbados scored 43 out of 100 on the Civil Service Development Index in 2017. And 43 out of 100, Mr. President, it is not a good number. There are 3 levels by which countries were classified. Low were scores between 0 and 39. Medium, scores between 40 and 59. And high, or professional systems within the public service, were those higher than 60. And the report stated a score of 43 out of 100 shows that Barbados has significant margin for improvement. And sir, what struck me was out of the 15 categories that made up the index of the assessment, we scored in 8 of them below 39. So we had a low score out of 8 of those categories. The first one, we scored efficiency, which was a score of 16, integrative capacity, 20, management capabilities, 33, HR planning, 24, human and social relations, 20, organization of HR function, 20, and most shockingly, development management, which is a category which focuses on individual and collective growth, was identified as the least mature HR subsystem, scoring a total of 8. Sir, clearly then there is room for improvement in the operations of the civil service. And so we have to find a way clearly to transform the public sector so that it is a place that is coveted by our best and our brightest. Too many a times we find a lot of persons who can make a contribution, a significant contribution, not going into the public service because they don't see it as a way in which they can grow and in a way that they can contribute. But sir, in order to chart that path towards a better service for Barbados in terms of the public sector, it will cost us. And I've spoken about this in previous sit-ins, but it will cost us. And what it will cost us is that ability for elected officials, public officials, to constantly interfere in the public sector for their own political gains. And sir, because of the economic environment that we find ourselves in, I do not believe that we can any longer afford to use the service for electioneering. Sir, I am not saying that elected politicians have no say in the service. The service must be guided by the government of the day and the policy. But sir, what we cannot allow is for the corruption of interference. In the recent Thrones speech, given it was touted as a reset, the public sector was one of the areas that I was anticipating would have been brought much attention to, given the size of the service and the impact that it has on the Barbadian economy. And sir, despite at the moment we have a public service or public sector modernization program headed by the Ministry of Innovation and Smart Technology, a large chunk of of that program is focused on digitization. I believe the loan is approximately US $40 million, and I stand corrected. The minister can guide me accordingly. But only 6%, $6 million, $6 million US dollars of that project is for enhancing HR management in the public sector. And sir, I am of the view that you can change systems. However, you also have to change culture and the ethos of the public sector to really see any true gains coming out of those digitization exercises. So, sir, as I said, I just wanted to make a quick intervention because I think too many times we hear Barbadians complaining about the state of the service, and I thought it would have been instructive to highlight the assessment done by the Inter-American Development Bank on those areas by which we clearly have a lot of work to do. And yes, I agree that appointments are necessary and long in coming, clearly. However, with appointments comes responsibility. And I really hope that with the efforts done by the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology, as the minister said, the appointments is just one step to, or one solution moving forward to improving the service. And with that brief intervention and contribution, sir, I'm obliged to you.
Thank you very much, Senator Driggs. Senator Connie? Senator McConney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to thank all of our honorable colleagues for their contributions to this debate. Mr. Franklin and Senator Franklin had many stories, as usual, about what he considered to be how appointments were made and whether there were improprieties included, much entertainment in that regard. It was interesting, however, that he would mention that the public service is rotten to the core. That was a very surprising statement for me to hear come from the mouths of someone who would represent the public service and who at one point in time also said that they would not want for certain public servants to be a part of the integrity legislation that did not manage to pass through. So it is very interesting that I hear these words, which in my mind appear to be contradictory, Mr. President. I also wish to acknowledge the contribution of Senator Moore, who spoke about the fact that there are commitments that were made before that were similar with regards to appointing that were not indeed honored, and that there is a caution that there are possible areas for further lag to exist if we are not attentive and we do not pursue it vigorously to make sure it happens, and that really and truly we need to do better in moving beyond the blockades that have been created for the appointment and the promotion of public servants. And Senator Drakes made a very interesting contribution as it related to some of the key questions that have to relate to productivity and to increase levels of satisfaction and to incentivize the persons to improve morale and other aspects. I simply wish to add that there is a part of the public sector modernization program that speaks to a human resource component that seeks to improve the human resource management within the public sector. There are several different components to that, and the process for that has begun. You are absolutely right that there is a major cultural issue that needs to be addressed within the public sector. As we know, one does not address culture in a minute or a day. It is a process that will take time, and this government, as you know, are committed to bringing about the reform. In fact, the way in which we have gone about seeking to bring about the change that is required in appointments and promotion using this approach of this bill is certainly one way of showing that this government is interested in taking action to move that needle. And so, Mr. President, it is with these few words that I beg to move that this bill again be read a second time.
Seconder? The question is that this bill be read a second time. Those honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that Your Honor do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into committee for the further consideration of this bill.
I'm anxious to leave. The question is that I do not leave the chair. The Honourable Senate resolve itself in the committee for further consideration of this bill. Those honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Currently, I shall leave.
The Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 1 stand part.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 2 stand part.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 3 stand part.
The question is that Clause 3 stand part. Honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 4 stand part.
The question is that Clause 4
Mr.
stand
President.
part.
Clause 4. At Clause 4, it says if you are acting in the post for 3 years or more immediately before the 1st October, sir, that immediately there is serving to do a disservice to what is happening. Like persons I spoke about, the guy I spoke about who was working for 3 years, and then they took him down because he wasn't with them. And then, but since when he came in, he gone back now. But he didn't there for 3 years. That was not his fault. So if you say we're working for 3 years in this particular post, that will cover it, because what you sought to do in the amendment that they did in the House is to make this Clause 7, where you said that the government will appoint people because of anything. You wouldn't need that amendment if you take out immediately. I think that should be considered, and I really feel that it wouldn't do any disservice to the people. It would help a lot of people who have been disadvantaged to be appointed, and because a lot of people will be suffering. You have people who work and they get transferred to another place, and somebody gone into their post because it was a temporary post. So you don't hold a temporary post, you were in a temporary post. Now you're making the post permanent, but the person that was in it originally and worked for 7 years, and I know a case like this, person worked for 7 years, but then they got a little promotion and they're gone out now. And the person who came in after them and gone in their post has been there for 3. All of a sudden, that person is going to be appointed and senior to the person who they were replacing. It is not fair. I think, sir, that immediately needs to go.
To note the comment that was made.
The question is that the comment of Senator Franklin be noted, which calls for the removal of the word immediately. Those in favour, please say aye.
No, not be noted, not changed.
It's not changed. Just noted, just noted. Just noted, just noted.
It's not amended, it's just
It's
noted.
not amended.
It's noted.
Yeah. Yeah, the question is that Clause 4 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 5 stand part.
The question is that Clause 5 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 6 stand part.
The question is that Clause 6 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 7 stand part.
The question is that Clause 7 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 8.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 8 stand part.
The question is that Clause 8 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 9.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 9 stand part.
The question is that Clause 9 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
You don't see it? I call it. Clause 9 is the commencement. Clause 9 is the commencement. Commencement date.
Looking at it. Yep. Yep, it does. In the new bill. It does have it in the new bill. It's in the new bill.
The change.
Okay.
7 to 7.
Okay.
Clause 9 at the commencement.
Right. It's very clear. The chairman has reported to me the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
The question is that this bill be now read a third time. Those honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited as the Public Service Appointments Act 2020.
The question is that this bill be now passed and so cited. Those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, this bill requires a vote on the section 49 of the Constitution, and therefore we need to take actual voice vote. Ordinarily, we would ring a bell to make sure everyone is here, but based on the numbers, I think we have all senators accounted for, sir.
Yeah.
Senator Walcott.
Aye.
Senator McConney.
Aye.
Senator Cummins.
Aye.
Senator Dr. Springer.
Aye.
Senator Dr. Holder.
Aye.
Senator Adams.
Aye.
Senator Dr. Haynes.
Aye.
Senator Grant.
Aye.
Senator Sands.
Aye.
His Honor, Senator Greenwich.
Aye.
Senator Franklin.
Aye.
Senator Drake.
Aye.
Senator Moore.
Aye.
Senator Wiggins.
Aye.
Senator Dr. Rogers,
Aye.
Senator Nurse,
Aye.
Senator Boyce,
Aye.
Senator Maynard,
Aye. Excuse me.
Senator
Aye.
Senator Tate.
Aye.
Mr. President, 19 honorable senators voted in favor of the bill, and therefore, in accordance with Section 49 of the Constitution, the threshold of 2/3 majority has been met.
The bill is therefore passed in accordance with the Constitution. We're going to revert. We're going to revert the
There's the end, right? You got something else?
Mr. President, we revert to reports from select committees.
Honorable Senators, I am required to report that in accordance with Section 60 of our standing orders, the selection committee has met and has made nominations to committees. These are for the Standing Orders Committee, Senators Holder, Sands, Boyce, Franklin. The House Committee, Senators Franklin, Haynes, Moore, and Maynard. For the Moore. Yes, Senator Tony Moore. For the Committee of Privileges, Senators Walcott, Sands, Boyce, and Franklin. For the Regulations Committee, Senators Greenwich, Franklin, Nurse, and Grant. And for the joint committees, those are the select committees for joint committees, the Library Committee, Senators Walcott, Haynes, Springer, Tate, Holder, Franklin. For the Committee of Public Accounts.
Excuse me, Mr. President. I'd like to decline that, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So noted, Senator Tate. Okay, the committee will come back with a recommendation on that. For the Committee of Public Accounts, Senators Walcott, Moore, as in Lucille Moore, Boyce, Cummins, Nurse, and Drakes. The Committee of Selection hereby submits its report in accordance with Section 60 of our standing orders.
Revert to public business, sir.
President, I want to simply thank all honorable members for their participation today, both in the tribute and also in the bill which was just dealt with, and I beg to move that this sitting be adjourned, sine die.
The question is that this sitting of the Senate be adjourned, sine die. Those members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. They think the ayes have it. This sitting, therefore, stands adjourned, sine die.